Here with us is Associate Research Scholar and Lecturer at Princeton University, Wright, and political strategist and founder of Oath, Brian Derrick. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Brian, I'm going to start with you. With all the unrest going on in the Middle East, we're seeing that is not helping Biden in this campaign at all. I do want to show our viewers a poll, a New York Times Siena College poll. It shows Biden at 88% support among Democrats. This is generally, but how do you think the Middle East unrest is going to affect his campaign?
Well, what I hear most from voters, whether it's online or talking to friends, is that people do not want to see America in more conflicts.
Sure.
Right now, America is not at war for the first time since I was in elementary school. And that is in large part thanks to President Biden. And so I think that people are giving him credit for that he's trying to do everything he can to keep Americans safe. And even when that means sending bullets abroad instead of troops.
Do you think Biden needs to change his stance, though, moving forward into November?
Well, it's certainly a pressing issue for a lot of Democrats and independents in particular, where it's kind of a no-win situation for him, honestly, where there are a lot of voters who are pushing for him to be tougher on Israel, and there are just as many that are pushing for a continuation of the long-standing support that America has provided to Israel. So I think it's a tough situation.
It is a tough situation, no doubt. Lauren, a Gallup poll shows that a majority of Americans, 55%, disapprove of the war in Gaza. What do you think the president can do on the campaign trail to change these numbers?
Well, he has the biggest podium and the biggest voice in the world. And so that's why I think that these 40 Republicans who voted against Ukraine aid, and especially the 37 Democrats that voted against Israel aid yesterday, need to go back and read FDR's 1941 State of the Union address, where he says that the democratic way of life is under threat by propagandists and dictators, and that any rational American would say we need to stand up to those factions and dictators. You know what he didn't say? He didn't say that Great Britain needs to exercise restraint. He didn't say that they're being irresponsible and indiscriminately bombing. He didn't say that he would condition aid on what they decided to do militarily. And so I think Joe Biden is absolutely at his best when he's strong on Israel, and he's absolutely at his worst when he panders to this Hamas-sympathetic wing of the Democratic Party.
So what's the strategy here for him?
Well, I think he needs to continue to be staunchly pro-Israel. What you hear a lot is that he's at a crosshairs within the Democratic Party, which is absolutely true, between Muslim voters in Michigan who are exercising their power very clearly. 100,000 chose not to vote for him, but for that undecided category. But there are also 6 million Jewish voters in the U.S. who are very disenchanted with the Democratic Party right now for exactly this reason. And so while, yes, it's sort of taken for granted that Joe Biden's always been an ally of Israel, when he's waffled on that and he's sent mixed messages and held Israel to these really impossible standards in some cases that we've never seen another country at war held to, then that support is very much at risk, to say the least.
We know primaries in Pennsylvania are this Tuesday. Biden faced a lot of protests in his home state. Could he lose Pennsylvania, Brian?
Pennsylvania is going to be really key in November. It's a core part of his path to 270, but I do think that there are a lot of issues in play, and foreign affairs has not been a motivating issue for many voters in recent history.
Sure.
And so while there's a lot of conversation about it, there is, as Lauren noted, like a very vocal group online who are going to be anti-Biden around this issue. I don't know that it will be a voting determinative factor for a lot of people.
Very quickly, do you think foreign policy will play a bigger role this election, though, even though it hasn't done so in history?
I think that it could be bigger, but not more significant than things like the economy, immigration, and reproductive rights.
On top of so many minds. Brian and Lauren, thank you so much. Don't go too far, guys. Thank you.